This is the day in 2018 Daniel Andrews promised the Health Workers Union a special training program. A week later, the Health Department signed a $1.2 million contract, but it was done without a tender and despite concerns of senior bureaucrats.
It wasn't made in the public interest.
Victoria's anti-corruption watchdog found advisors to the Premier and health ministers interfered and pressured Health Department public servants to award the contract. The union was given privileged access and favourable treatment, IBAC found. The combined effect of these failings and unethical conduct resulted in a contract that should not have been entered into with the union and an outcome which was not in the public interest. Public servants warned the union was ill-equipped to deliver the program and called for it to be halted. But it wasn't.
There are no findings against anyone in this report. The Anti-Corruption Commission has looked at a series of matters from some years ago and have found no corrupt conduct.
IBAC did find public servants were not giving frank and fearless advice because they feared retribution.
This investigation highlights the risks that can arise when a government is contracting with an organisation that has connections with the governing party.
Previous probes have warned of a grey corruption where processes are bypassed, taking hold in Victoria. This report agrees.
Soft corruption, grey corruption, call it what you like. It's all corruption. It starts at the top. It starts with the Premier.
But the Premier is unrepentant.
It is an educational report and they're not my words.
But there's no mention of educational report in the document. For years, Labor MPs and ministers have privately criticised the centralisation of power in the Premier's office. IBAC has joined the chorus. Former Minister Jenny Mikakos told the Commission the current Victorian government is a very centralised government where the Premier's office has its tentacles everywhere. The Premier rejects the criticism.
I've got a pretty active understanding of how the show works. It's my office.
IBAC says the Premier and ministers should have known what their staff were doing and has made 17 recommendations to tighten staff guidelines. Others want the high bar set for corruption in Victoria lowered.
This conduct is objectionable. It reflects very seriously on this government and its attitude to matters of integrity.
This is not the smoking gun that some of the Premier's critics were hoping for, but it's still a very damning report that calls into question the integrity of the government. The report even notes that during his secret interview, the Premier couldn't recall public comments he'd made. This report is littered with red flags. The fact the public service acts in fear of retribution should worry Victorians. The fact that advisors were able to orchestrate multi-million-dollar deals for union mates will cause concern. And this isn't the first time Daniel Andrews has had to defend his government's behaviour. Remember Operation Watts or the Red Shirt Rorts, which found the Labor Party used taxpayer-funded staff for party political purposes. The Premier says he'll examine the report and consider the recommendations, which should be done with haste, but with little real effective opposition. It will require internal political will. Ultimately, IBAC says the Premier must be accountable to the Parliament for what happened, but that's a place where he holds a thumping majority.